She made her way toward the crowd, gathered near Bryce's locker. Students were clustered around it, some snapping pictures with their phones, others murmuring in disbelief. And there, taped across the metal door for everyone to see, were pages of printed screenshots, messages, comments, private conversations, every cruel, vile, degrading thing Bryce had ever said behind people's backs. Some of it was about classmates, people he pretended to be friends with, only to trash in private. Others were even worse, disgusting remarks about teachers, racist and sexist jokes that couldn't be brushed off as harmless or funny. But the worst part? The timestamps. They weren't old. They were recent. Very recent. Just then, Bryce shoved his way through the crowd. His face had gone pale, his eyes wide in panic, as he saw the wall of evidence plastered on his locker. "What the hell is this?" His voice cracked as he yanked the papers down with trembling hands. But it was too late. The damage was done. Maya didn't need to say a single word. She just leaned against the locker across from his, arms crossed, watching as his reputation collapsed, watching as the same students who once laughed at his jokes now looked at him with disgust, watching as even his closest friends began stepping back, slowly but surely, not willing to go down with him. Bryce's eyes locked onto hers. But there was no cocky grin this time, no smugness, no arrogance, just pure, unfiltered rage. He had always been the one in control, the one with the power. But now, he was grasping at straws, desperately trying to hold on to something that was already slipping through his fingers. And 2 days later, the final nail in the coffin dropped. By the time Maya arrived at school that morning, the building was already buzzing. She stepped through the front doors and was immediately met with hushed voices, stifled giggles, and the way people leaned in close to whisper while sneaking glances toward the lockers. Something had happened, and Maya had a pretty good idea what it was. She made her way toward the crowd gathered near Bryce's locker. Students were clustered around it, some snapping pictures with their phones, others murmuring in disbelief. And there, taped across the metal door for everyone to see, were pages of printed screenshots, messages, comments, private conversations. Every cruel, vile, degrading thing Bryce had ever said behind people's backs. Some of it was about classmates, people he pretended to be friends with, only to trash in private. Others were even worse, disgusting remarks about teachers, racist and sexist jokes that couldn't be brushed off as harmless or funny. But the worst part? The timestamps. They weren't old. They were recent, very recent. Just then, Bryce shoved his way through the crowd. His face had gone pale, his eyes wide in panic, as he saw the wall of evidence plastered on his locker. "What the hell is this?" His voice cracked as he yanked the papers down with trembling hands. But it was too late. The damage was done. Maya didn't need to say a single word. She just leaned against the locker across from his, arms crossed, watching as his reputation collapsed, watching as the same students who once laughed at his jokes now looked at him with disgust. Watching as even his closest friends began stepping back, slowly but surely, not willing to go down with him. Bryce's eyes locked onto hers, but there was no cocky grin this time, no smugness, no arrogance, just pure, unfiltered rage. "You did this," he hissed, voice low and shaking with fury. Maya tilted her head slightly. "Did I?" His nostrils flared. "You think you're so smart, huh? You think this makes you better than me?" She took a step forward, her voice calm but unwavering. "No, Bryce. I think this just shows everyone exactly who you are. The only difference now is they finally... We don't have to lift a finger, because you've already destroyed yourself. Bryce stared at her, his jaw tight. And for the first time, Maya saw it, doubt. He masked it quickly with a forced smirk. You think you've got me all figured out? You don't know a damn thing about me? Maya studied him, calm and steady. Maybe not, but I know you're scared. Bryce's entire body tensed. I'm not scared of you. Maya smiled, cold, sharp. Not of me, she said. Of being irrelevant, of losing, of waking up one day and realizing that no one really cares about you unless you're hurting someone else. That's what really scares you, Bryce. He clenched his jaw again. His nostrils flared. She could see it, the war inside him. He wanted to lash out, to say something cruel, to take back control. But there was nothing he could say, because deep down, he knew. She was right. Maya shook her head gently. I don't need to fight you, Bryce. You're already fighting yourself. Then she turned and walked away. And for the first time since she met him, Bryce had no comeback. That night, Maya sat at the kitchen table, slowly swirling the ice in her glass. Vin Diesel leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching her quietly. Something happened today, she said at last. Vin raised an eyebrow. With Bryce? She nodded. I think I got in his head. Vin smirked. Good. Maya exhaled. But that doesn't mean he's done. Vin pushed off the counter and walked over, sitting across from her. Do you want to be done? Maya frowned. What do you mean? He leaned forward slightly. You could end this right now. Call him out. Embarrass him in front of the entire school. You got more power than you think, kid. She was silent for a long time, staring at the melting ice in her glass. Then finally, she shook her head. No, she said. I want him to end it himself. Vin grinned. Smart. Maya leaned back, stretching her arms over her head. Yeah, but it's going to take patience. Vin chuckled. Good thing you got plenty of that. Maya smirked. For now? Vin nodded slowly. So what's yours? She was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. I'm going to let him dig his own grave. Vin grinned. Now that's my girl. Maya leaned back in her chair, feeling a familiar thrill settle into her bones. Control. Because Bryce Carter thought he was running the game. But Maya? She was just getting started. She knew exactly what she was doing. She'd seen guys like Bryce before. Loud, cocky, always needing a crowd to validate their cruelty. They fed off fear, lived for reactions, thrived on control. But the truth? Guys like Bryce weren't invincible. They were sloppy. They got comfortable. And when they did, they made mistakes. Maya was patient. She'd let him keep digging until he had no way out. The next morning, she walked into Clearview High like nothing had happened. The whispers were still there, but different now. Yesterday, people whispered about the girl who rode off with Vin Diesel in a muscle car. Today, they were whispering about what Bryce had done to her locker. The school was divided. Some thought it was hilarious. Others thought Bryce looked petty, weak. And Maya felt it. The shift. Because once people start questioning the king, his kingdom starts to crack. As usual, Bryce was posted up by the lockers, surrounded by his crew. They were laughing, probably telling some cruel joke. But as Maya passed, the laughter faded. Bryce's gaze snapped toward her, waiting for a reaction. He didn't get one. She walked right past them without so much as a glance. That made his expression tighten. By lunch, the tension was thick. Bryce was spiraling. He wasn't used to being ignored. He needed control. And Maya wasn't following the script, so he escalated. She wasn't surprised. As she walked into the cafeteria, Bryce sat at his usual spot, smirking, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Hey, Maya, you still crying about your little locker?" The room went quieter. Heads turned. People looked from Bryce to Maya, waiting. She didn't flinch. She grabbed her tray. "You all right?" he asked. Maya gave a small nod, then chuckled softly. "That was kind of dramatic, huh?" Vin smirked. His signature half-grin crept across his face. "A little." Maya shook her head, letting her eyes wander out the window. "I didn't mean for them to find out like that." Vin glanced sideways. "And how were you planning to do it? Let that punk keep pushing you around?" Maya exhaled slowly, resting her head against the seat. "I wasn't going to let him push me around. I was just waiting." Vin raised an eyebrow. "Waiting for what?" She shrugged. "The right moment." He was quiet for a second, then let out a soft laugh. "You sound like me when I was your age." Maya turned to look at him, the smirk tugging at the edge of her mouth. "That's a scary thought." Vin laughed louder this time, shaking his head. "Smart ass." They drove in silence after that, but it was a comfortable kind. The tension from earlier had melted away, replaced by their familiar rhythm. But even as they shared the calm, Maya knew something important. This wasn't over. Bryce Carter wasn't the kind of guy who let things go. And while he might have looked shaken today, fear could easily morph into something much more dangerous. Anger. They pulled into the driveway of a sleek, modern home nestled in a quiet Houston suburb. Maya unbuckled her seatbelt, but didn't get out immediately. Vin noticed. "Something else in your mind?" Maya hesitated. Then she exhaled. "He's not done with me." Vin studied her for a long moment. "No," he said finally, voice calm, deliberate. "But you're not done with him either." Mia met his gaze. "You think I should fight back?" Vin leaned back in his seat, resting an arm on the steering wheel. "I think you need to be ready. Guys like him, they don't..." She ate lunch alone, not out of fear but choice, choosing a quiet table near the cafeteria's edge, where she could observe without being noticed. Bryce and his crew, meanwhile, ruled the lunchroom. They occupied the largest table at the center, loud and careless, laughing like the world belonged to them. Now and then, Maya felt his eyes on her, watching, calculating. But he didn't come over. Not yet. By the final bell, Maya was ready to leave. The Houston heat still clung to the pavement outside, making it shimmer in the late afternoon sun. And as she stepped out the front doors, she knew one thing for certain. Bryce Carter had started something, but Maya Williams was going to finish it. She was walking toward the bus stop when she reached into her pocket to grab her phone. Just as her fingers brushed the screen, she heard a voice behind her. "Hey, new girl." She turned around. There he was, Bryce Carter, hands stuffed into his pockets, the usual smug grin plastered across his face. A few of his friends hovered nearby, lingering like shadows, waiting to see what he'd do next. Maya let out a quiet sigh. "What do you want?" Bryce took a slow, calculated step toward her. "You've got a bit of an attitude problem, you know that." Maya didn't say a word. Bryce's grin grew wider, edging into something more cocky. "What? You think you're better than me or something?" Maya let out a small laugh. Not nervous, not scared, just genuinely amused. And that reaction? That threw Bryce off more than anything else had all day. "No," she said slowly, her voice calm, controlled. "I think you should walk away." Bryce's confident smirk flickered for a moment. Only a second, before snapping back into place. "Oh, yeah?" he asked, stepping even closer, now towering over her. "And why's that?" Maya didn't back down. She leaned in slightly, her tone just above a whisper. "Because you have no idea who I am." Bryce let out a short laugh, shaking his head. "And who exactly are you supposed to be?" But Maya didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back, raised her phone, and tapped a single button. Suddenly, the roar of a high-performance engine shattered the air. A black Dodge Charger Hellcat rolled up to the curb with a low growl that turned heads instantly. Its glossy frame gleamed under the Houston sun, and the tinted window rolled down slowly. Sitting behind the wheel was none other than Vin Diesel. Bryce's smirk vanished. What if the school bully messed with the wrong girl? A girl with a connection so powerful it could turn the entire school upside down. This is the gripping, inspiring story of Maya Williams, a quiet new student who becomes the latest target of Bryce Carter, the most feared guy at school. He thinks she's an easy mark. Silent, fragile, invisible. But he's about to find out the truth. Because Maya is hiding something. Something that will flip the script in a way no one expects. Stick around till the end, because this bully's cocky swagger will lead him right into a fall he never saw coming. Maya Williams stepped off the school bus, gripping the straps of her backpack as she gazed up at the enormous entrance to Clearview High School, nestled in Houston, Texas. The crisp autumn breeze carried the faint smell of freshly trimmed grass and sun-warmed concrete. All around her, groups of students laughed and chatted as they headed into the building. But Maya felt completely detached, like a shadow at the edge of their world. She wasn't unfamiliar with this routine. In fact, this was her fourth transfer in just 3 years. While some kids moved around because of job changes or family needs, Maya moved because she needed a reset. Again. She kept her gaze low as she walked toward the main doors, trying to disappear into the crowd. A few students glanced her way, curious about the new girl, but she avoided eye contact, determined not to be noticed. Clearview High was nothing extraordinary. A typical suburban school filled mostly with middle-class teens who had grown up together. The football team was decent. The cheerleaders were the usual social royalty. And the pecking order had long been established before Maya even stepped foot in the building. None of that mattered to her. She had one goal: stay invisible. Inside, the school buzzed with the usual chaos. Lockers banging open, sneakers squeaking on tile, teachers trying to herd students into classrooms before the bell. Maya clutched her schedule and continued walking, already familiar with the process. Find her locker, figure out the cafeteria layout, and most importantly, identify who to avoid. That's when she saw Bryce Carter. Tall, broad-shouldered, and exuding the kind of natural confidence only the most untouchable guys in high school could carry. He was leaning against a row of lockers, flanked by a group of boys in matching Letterman jackets. They were laughing at something he said. Maybe too hard. Even from a distance, Maya could sense